All right, so today's webinar is going to provide an overview of the Portfolio Manager tool. Today, we will demonstrate the core functionality of Portfolio Manager. You will learn all of the essential how-to information that you need to get up and running with Portfolio Manager so that you can start to track your building's energy, water, and waste and materials performance. Learning objectives today include how to navigate Portfolio Manager, how to add a single property and enter details, how to enter energy, water, and waste and materials data, and how to generate reports and track progress. Portfolio Manager is often used as a management tool that is just one part of a broader strategic plan to reduce consumption and costs. It is used to compare, measure, and track consumption over time, set baselines, goals, and targets, and to generate metrics that reveal underperforming properties. Then, based on this whole building perspective, building managers can begin to make investment decisions about conservation and efficiency measures and track the impact of these strategies in Portfolio Manager after they are implemented. Finally, Portfolio Manager is a free, online, secure resource backed up by free and regularly updated trainings documentation. Portfolio Manager overall is a management tool where you can assess building energy and water consumption plus waste. You can also track changes in energy, water, greenhouse gas emissions, and cost over time. You can track green power purchase, and you can share report data with others. You can also create custom reports and finally apply for Energy Star certification. Portfolio Manager offers more than 300 metrics to assess performance. For energy, there are metrics such as source and site energy and weather normalized energy. Greenhouse gas emissions and green power is also tracked. Indoor and outdoor water by type is tracked, and trash, recycling, and compost can be tracked. These resources are limited, and Portfolio Manager helps you allocate them strategically to get the greatest benefit from projects. The marquee metric for energy in Portfolio Manager is the 1 to 100 Energy Star score available to certain property types. If the score is 75 or higher, a property is eligible for Energy Star certification. Recognition is an important part of a good energy management strategy, and we will talk a bit more about the Energy Star score in just a bit. Portfolio Manager offers users hundreds of metrics. Among them are energy consumption, water consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and the 1 to 100 Energy Star score. So, what do we mean by benchmarking? Benchmarking is the process of comparing use to gain valuable perspective about building performance. Portfolio Manager offers several ways to compare energy, water, and waste. For all three, use Portfolio Manager to establish a baseline. The baseline comprises 12 complete calendar months of data and is a starting point against which to compare future consumption. In other words, as the building operates, we compare newer data to the baseline period in order to understand how consumption and costs change over time. For energy, another way to benchmark in Portfolio Manager is to compare a property's baseline to the median energy use of a national sample of similar buildings, which mostly comes from a data set called CBEX, or the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. And finally, for energy, certain properties will generate an Energy Star score, which reflects your property's performance compared to a national sample of similar buildings. From CBEX that is normalized for the weather and attributes related to how the property operates. In addition to the Energy Star score, there is now also a score for multifamily properties, which reflects a property's performance compared to a normalized sample of other multifamily properties. Once a 12-month baseline is established, Portfolio Manager can be used to establish target reduction goals for energy based on 1. Desired energy use reduction from baseline, 2. Reduction compared to median, or 3. Target Energy Star score. Buildings can also be grouped in Portfolio Manager and compared to each other. And in certain property types, those eligible for Energy Star score can apply for special recognition if the score is 75 or higher. The Energy Star score is one simple number that can be understood by all stakeholders. Building types here with an asterisk are not eligible for Energy Star certification. These are the property types, other than the ones with asterisks, that are eligible for an Energy Star score. Or rather, all of these ones on this slide are eligible for an Energy Star score. And they are eligible for the score because there is a robust reference data set for these space types where EPA has found meaningful relationships between space types and how they use energy. So when you enter a property in Portfolio Manager as one of these types, your actual data can be compared to the reference data set to generate the Energy Star score. If you do not see a particular space type on this list, it means that an Energy Star score for that type is not available. Common examples include museums, libraries, police stations, and convention centers. But keep in mind that while there is no score for these property types, their performance over time can still be tracked in Portfolio Manager using other metrics like weather normalized energy use. For properties noted with an asterisk, so that's going to be barracks, medical offices, residence halls, and wastewater treatment plants, there is an Energy Star score, but these properties are ineligible for certification at this time. As of March 2023, convenience stores are a new addition to this list. All right, and for more information about eligibility, I have a link that I'm going to send to everyone in the chat here. And there we go. It is not uncommon for a property to have multiple property types within it. A multi-use property can receive the Energy Star score and receive certification, but these two conditions apply. 1. 75% of the property's GFA must be comprised of property types that are eligible for an Energy Star score. And 2. More than 50% of the GFA must be comprised of one eligible property type, excluding parking. For example, Building 1 on this slide depicts a property that is 60% office and 40% warehouse. This space is eligible for a score and certification because both property types are eligible for a score, and because the office is more than 50% of the total GFA. In Building 2, even though the office is more than 50% of the GFA, this building is ineligible for the score because it does not meet the 75% minimum requirement. In other words, 40% of the space is comprised of lab, which is an ineligible property type. Building 3 on this slide is eligible for a score because it does meet the 75% minimum requirement. Hotel and office are both eligible space types and combined make up 85% of the building GFA. This building is also eligible because the hotel is more than 50%. Finally, Building 4 is not eligible for the score, even though all three space types within it are eligible property types. This is because no one eligible property type is more than 50% of the total GFA. As of March 2018, building certification is now available in Canada. The Canadian property types on this slide can earn the Energy Star score now that the tool has been adapted in partnership with Natural Resources Canada to include Canadian weather data, postal codes, both official languages, the metric system, and other Canadian data. And for more information about benchmarking Canadian properties, please see the following FAQs that I'm about to send in the chat. All right, we've got that one. And a final one. Please do direct all questions about Canadian properties directly to Natural Resources Canada. And this is an email that we actually have. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to send you the email and the website into the chat so that if you do want to get more information on Canadian Energy Star and the workings of it, then you can go to that link or contact that email. All right, we do have a pop quiz, so we are going to go through that really fast. So let's get that opened and then we'll be on our way. All right, so let's close this out in a few seconds and we'll go over the answers. All right. So the answer for the first one is D, all of the above, and looks like that was definitely an overwhelming majority of the answer. So you can benchmark any combination of energy, water, and waste in Portfolio Manager. And then for number two, the answer is false. You can always benchmark in Portfolio Manager. The question is, can you get a score, and then can you apply for certification? So getting a score is based on Energy Star having enough data, but you can always benchmark your properties because it is just good for record keeping and good for understanding your energy usage over time. To create a record in Portfolio Manager, all you need are the items that are listed under number 1 on this slide. So that's the property's primary function, name, address, and postal code, the year that it was built, and the GFA. As long as you enter those details, then you will have a full record. If you are interested in generating the Energy Star score, you will also need property use details. The details are considered in Portfolio Manager to be the drivers of energy use in buildings. They will change according to the property type you are entering, and Portfolio Manager will prompt you accordingly. The drivers of energy use in an office building will differ from those of a hotel, for example. Lastly, you will also need consumption data for the resources that you are interested in tracking. To generate metrics, you will need at least 12 months of data because all metrics in Portfolio Manager are annualized. For energy and water, this information typically comes from utility bills, which you will need for all purchased and on-site generated energy, and the same goes for water. As for waste, you will need the quantity of waste and materials recycled, disposed, donated, etc. The information may come from a measurement from your waste hauler or from the size of the bin. The Energy Star program offers a very handy data collection wizard that creates a PDF or a Word document with all the necessary inputs for the property type or types that you wish to enter in Portfolio Manager. You can use the wizard, then collect the necessary data so that you have everything that you need when you sit down at your computer to create a Portfolio Manager record. The collection wizard helps reduce the amount of time that you go back and forth to get the data that you will need. And for the data collection wizard, you are going to use this sheet. And again, this wizard is not, or this spreadsheet is not mandatory, but it will help you get the information that you need all into one place so that when you go through the process that we are about to go over, you'll have everything ready and it'll just be a lot simpler for you. Lastly, if you are a building owner who plans to work with a consultant, such as a licensed professional or engineer, to benchmark your building, the recommended best practice is for the building owner to create the property in their account and share it with the consultant. Portfolio manager data is proprietary and does belong to the person who is the portfolio manager account owner or the PDA. All right, and with that, we are going to start navigating Portfolio Manager. So let me just get this pulled up. All right. All right, I should be sharing my screen now. So Annie, can you make sure that it looks fine and that you can see it?
Can see it. Looks good.
Lovely, thank you. All right, and for those of you who joined late, just another warning, I do have very bad allergies today, so I may be talking a bit softly, so do let Annie know in the chat if you cannot hear what I'm saying, and then I will try and project a little bit more. All right, so just gonna move it a little bit. So getting started in Portfolio Manager. So you will need to make an account. So you can simply click on create a new account, and then you will be able to create a whole new account here, setting your username and also all of your information. And so a big thing that we do recommend, your username cannot be changed, right? So if you do make something that's, like Hockey Lover 08 or something, you will have to share that with people eventually. So make sure that it's a professional one and one that you do want to be sharing, because you may have to connect with other accounts, which is something we go through more in Portfolio Manager 201. But you will have to connect with licensed professionals or your utility, or you won't have to, but those are options. So again, just make sure that it's something professional that you will be very okay with sharing with a lot of different people. And then also putting in all of your information, just, make sure it's all accurate as possible. And then after that, you're going to confirm your identity, and then you're going to create your account. So because I already have my account made, we're going to go back. So there's a couple different ways to log into Portfolio Manager. There's the more direct route where you log into portfoliomanager.energystar.gov. Alternatively, you can also log in through the benchmarking page of Energy Star, and you can just put in your login account information here, and then you can log in. So it gets you to the same place. It really just matters, maybe where you've bookmarked and where you think is easier to sign into. So now I'm just going to sign in. All right, so we do have a couple properties here, but today we are going to be adding a new property. So do note here that Portfolio Manager is set up in a series of tabs. So it's kind of like a filing cabinet, but virtual, I guess. So we've got a few different tabs here. We've got My Portfolio, which is going to show you all of your properties. Right now, I only have 2, but I'm sure that there's folks in here who have way more than 2, and maybe you have 0 properties, or maybe you have 500, but however many properties you have, they're going to show up on this page, and you can just click on it, and then it'll bring you to that property. So we're going to go back to My Portfolio. Another thing here on this tab in particular is you can add a new property, which we're going to do in just a minute. And there's also a box for source EUI. And a very notable feature is that any text that is in blue is going to give you a definition from a glossary. So before we get much further, let's go to the Help tab here. So I'm highlighting the Help tab here because a lot of times folks will not go to the Help tab because it just sounds a little boring, or maybe it won't be actually helpful. But we do pride ourselves on having very helpful resources overall, and we also pride ourselves on taking feedback pretty regularly. So we really recommend, or I try and hype it up as much as possible because it is just so useful. So we've got an FAQ database that you can always click on, and you can search FAQs really fast, and you can get any question that you may have about Portfolio Manager, and we have a team of experts who regularly update those FAQs. Like you'll see the dates on them, and a lot of them are from April 2023 or March 2023 or May. People go through them very regularly on our team and update them with the most updated information. There is also a glossary option. So, as I said before, the blue text will always highlight, except if it's a link, but the blue text in Portfolio Manager will pop up with a glossary definition. But if you want to just familiarize yourself with a bunch of other definitions, we have a massive glossary with all of the definitions here. So that's going to be found under the help desk. And then also, or the help tab, there is a help desk where we have a 95% approval rating and a very fast response time. It's typically 4 business hours is the limit, but usually it's actually a lot faster. So you can just put in your contact name and then you can submit your questions and get personalized help. So you can get personalized help with your property questions or any other specific questions. So I strongly recommend that you take advantage of that. All right, so we are going to go back to the My Portfolio tab. And also there are a few different things that you can do with with managing your portfolio. So you can transfer ownership of your property, and then you can do a lot of other different things. You can also delete properties. So we do go over these functions more in 201 and 301, which are going to be held upcoming in June. So for sake of time, we won't go over them, but do know that there are a lot of management tools just for your portfolio over here. All right, so the star of the show, we are going to add a property today. All right, so actually 1 minute. Okay, so for the property type, today I am going to select an office property. So a lot of properties that we do get are offices, but also be aware, of course, not everything is an office, and it is beneficial to you to make sure that you select the property type that most closely relates to your property situation. This will make things a lot easier for you. And also, if you do end up getting to the certification stage and we think that your property is really inaccurate, we may reach back out to you. So it does benefit you most to choose the property type that most accurately reflects your property type. And then also note that there are 85 or so property types. So this is where our FAQs and the glossary come in handy so that you can make sure that you are choosing the right one. But for today, we're going to do an office. So then we're going to go down here and your properties buildings. So in this section, you're going to choose how many physical buildings do you consider to be part of your property. So we're going to start off going through here. So if your property is more than one, so if it's a campus, which there are 5 types that you can use for a campus. So that's senior care center, K through 12 schools, hospitals, multifamily housing, and hotels. But also note that you cannot note that an office park, if you have an office park, you're going to need to certify each of those office buildings separately, and you cannot have an office park as a campus. So keep that in mind that an office park can't be a campus, and you do have to do those individually. So if that is your case, then you would just do different properties for each one of your buildings. And then 1 is either the situation that I just said about multiple office buildings or any property that you just have 1 building for. And then for none, we do have a program that started in 2020 for recognizing tenant spaces. And so that is if your property is part of a building, but you don't own the entire building, but you still want to get recognition for your space because you guys are really energy efficient. So in that case, if you select none, then you're going to open up the tenant space building wizard. So then make sure that if you are a tenant space, do select that because that is a new program and we are definitely trying to promote that because it is quite useful. And for today, I'm just going to select 1. All right, and then we're going to come down here. And so we've got a few different types here. We've got existing, we've got design project, and we've got test purpose. So or test property. So I'm going to do test property, and I'm also going to choose, I would like to enter data as if this property is in operation. And that's just because I'm making a fake property. I don't want to accidentally try and certify it. I just want it to be a test property, but it's going to act as though I'm entering an existing building. So if you do have an existing building, then you're going to be selecting existing. And if you do have a planned or a design project, then you are going to be entering design project. So now I'm going to hit get started. All right. So here we're going to enter the building name. So I'm just going to say June PM 101. Also notably, the address is super important here. So you want to make sure you enter it very accurately. And you can also change everything in every other stage. You can change every single address line except for the country. So the key part is to get the country right. You might think that that's obvious, but especially if you're not in either US or Canada, there's probably going to be countries around your country that have similar spelling at the beginning. So just make sure you're selecting the right one because there is a long list and they're crunched together. So it's easier to do than you might expect. So make sure you got the right country. And then after that, we're going to enter the street address. We're just going to do fake address. All right, and another important point is that, as I said, you can change your property address at any time except for the country. And the reason this is important is because especially your zip code, but your street address, all of this is used to calculate your weather normalized data. And so this way they're not comparing, somebody's energy use in January in Alaska to someone's energy use in San Diego in January. So all of this sort of evens it out so that you're not just unfairly compared to other people or other buildings that may not have the same energy use. So that's why your address is really important. And that's also why we allow you to change the zip code and street address because sometimes those things can change over the years if a street name changes or anything like that. We want it to be accurate and up to date. So then you're going to do the year built. And again, if it's blue text, you can hover over it. So I'm just going to do 2022. And I'm going to do gross floor area of 10,000. So you can also mark this as a temporary value, which signifies to yourself that you have to come back and re-edit it and update it. So if you're at the stage where you haven't fully measured it, you don't really know, but you want to estimate it, then you're going to put that in and mark it as a temporary value. However, if you do end up applying for certification and you have values, including GFA, that are marked as temporary, we are going to reach back out to you and have to verify if that value is accurate and updated. And then if it's not, you're going to have to update it. So make sure that you do update any temporary values that you put in place. We also do have irrigated area. This is not mandatory to fill out because there is no red asterisk on the side, but this is in case you have a large irrigated area and you're going to want to put in how many square feet or anything else. You can go by other units as well. And then we're going to do occupancy. So occupancy here is the percentage of your property's GFA that is occupied and operational. And this is a measure of the building's occupancy or use, and it is not connected to a building's maximum occupancy. So what I'm going to do is put it at 90%. You also have the option to choose a property photo if you so desire. And then for a standard ID, there are different cities and organizations that have standard IDs. And so if you want to connect your property to usually a benchmarking law or ordinance, then you're going to find that. And then you're going to put in your ID. And then this way you can get credit a little bit easier for having benchmarked. And then finally, this box under do any of these apply? This box and these 4 options are not going to be the same for every property type. So these are particular to office spaces, but these 4 different questions have been shown to have a measurable difference on energy usage and efficiency. So do make sure that if you do, for example, include parking, then you do want to mark that off. And so all of these are important to be as accurate as you can be. But for today, I'm going to say that there are none and press continue. All right, so here we are, we've got our basic information right up there. And then you can see that we've got our building use right over here. So another thing that we can do is add another property type. So there are 4 reasons where you're going to want to use a property use. So number 1 is if it is a property use type that can get an Energy Star score, if it accounts for more than 25% of the property's GFA, if it is vacant or unoccupied office, if the hours of operation differ by more than 10 hours from the main property use. And another thing to remember about this is that you can both add an additional property type use here, or you can wait to do that once we get back to the main page, and that's going to be covered in PM 201. But if you already know that your building needs to be broken out into 2 different property types, then you are just going to add it here. So we'll do that in just a second. But for now, let's say that the GFA is 10,000, just as we entered earlier, that will automatically populate. Weekly operating hours, let's go with 60. And then workers, we're going to go with 40. I'm going to go with 30. And percent that can be heated, that is typically for most properties 50% or more, but do just check on that and make sure. Percent that can be cooled, not everywhere has AC, so definitely make sure to check on that one. And just as before, you can mark off every single thing as temporary value, and it will automatically start at the first of the year that you said that it was built in. So make sure that you do update that if it needs updating. In my case, it doesn't need updating. And then also do note that everything that is in a blue star is used to calculate the 1 to 100 Energy Star score. So for adding another type of use, let's say theoretically that I have a part of the property that operates 24/7. So it has 168 weekly operating hours. So in that case, it is way more than 10 hours from the main property use. So this is the main property and it has 60 hours. But if I have a little part of it that has 168 operating hours per week, then that means that we're going to have to add another type of use. So in that case, I would scroll down to office type. I click add. All right, and then this would be the second one. So let's say theoretically, and I'm going to change this back in a second, but it'd be 9,000 then, and then there'd be 1,000. And then the weekly operating hours would be 168, and then I'd continue to fill all of this out. But instead, I'm just going to delete this, keep it simple, but that is how you would do it. All right, and with that, we are going to add property. All right, so that covered our first part of adding a new property. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to add energy data. So here we are going to add a meter. All right, one second. All right, so we've got a number of energy sources that are available to us. So make sure to choose all the ones that apply to your property, no matter how many it is. And then also a common fuel mix is electric and natural gas. So that is what we are going to be doing today. So once you select electric, there's going to be 3 different options. Again, as our theme is in Portfolio Manager, make sure that you are selecting the appropriate one. So if you do have solar panels or if you do have anything generated by wind turbines, you're going to want to designate that because also everything is going to have a slightly different energy profile and you want to get credit for what you should be getting credit for. So we're going to say that there is 1 electric meter that is purchased from the grid, and then we're going to say 1 natural gas meter. All right, actually, one important point. So there is an other, right? So if you think that none of these apply to your fuel types, you can always choose other, but we really do encourage that you look through and make sure that if there is anything We try and discourage the use of other just because we do have so many other types, but if you really do fall in the other category, then you can absolutely make use of it, of course. All right, so then we're going to click Get Started. So here we can edit a few different things. So initially when you come to the page, it'll kind of look like you can't edit anything, right? So like none of the boxes will be clear, but then as soon as you click into the chart, it'll show you all the ones that you can edit. So one thing that you can do is you can either not change your meter name at all, or a very common thing that we get is folks will name their meters something so that they will remember what it is. And often what we see is folks will say account number. So they'll put their account number after their energy type. And then this way it's a little bit easier for them to designate where they're getting their information from. So we're just going to do that for each. Whoops. All right. All right. So you can also change this if you selected the wrong one before, but we didn't, so we're going to keep that. And I think today we're going to do kBTU. And then for electric, we are going to do kilowatt hours. All right, and date the meter became active. I am sticking with the day that the building was built, but it may not be so easy for your cases, right? So a lot of times meters do become active the day that the building is built. But if you don't have all the bills that stretch back to whenever your building was built, then that's fine. You can just start entering based on the first day of all the bills that you do currently have or of the ones that you are trying to keep track of. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just doing the one with the day that it was built, but again, that may not be your case. So you can also uncheck in use if you do want to do historical data, and then you can write the date that the meter became active. So this is very common in older buildings if you do want to keep track for a long time. And also depending on the fuel type, you will have the option to have it entered as delivery. So like for bulk fuel delivery. All right, so for now we are going to do create meters. All right, so for this one, we are going to enter the start date for natural gas. So that was going to be 2022. All right, so then that means Portfolio Manager is going to auto fill this. So if, for example, this is wrong and it's through maybe, the 14th of February instead of the 1st, you can always edit that. I'm just going to keep it because it's fine. And then you are going to enter your usage, and you can also enter the total cost if you want to. And if this is an estimate, then you can also check that box. And we're going to add another entry. We're going to say 450. And we're going to say 390. All right, and I'm just entering in one so that we can see what it's going to look like. Let me get back to the main page. So another option that you do have is you can upload it into this single meter spreadsheet. All right. So we do have two options for uploading the data here, we have more than two options, but on this page, you can enter it manually on Portfolio Manager, or you can copy and paste it into this sheet here that's on Portfolio Manager. You do still have to manually enter everything, but depending on how you get your bills, this may or may not be easier. Like you might be able to bulk copy paste into this spreadsheet. So that is an option for you, and then you'll upload it back into Portfolio Manager via this Choose File button. All right, so now we're going to get to our electric grid. And we are also going to start it at 1/2022. That's going to populate. We're going to say 9,000 and add another entry. And we'll add a couple more. And then we'll have a big spike. All right. And then we're going to do continue. All right, so now we're going to get here and it's going to say, in summary, we've got two different meters and it wants us to tell us, is this everything? Is this going to represent the total energy consumption? or does it not account for the total energy consumption? So for this example, I'm going to say that it does, but if it doesn't, then you're going to want to keep on adding energy. All right, so now we have added our energy. So this is going to make a fun chart of, yeah, so we can see that spike up here. And because these are both on the same chart as far as values go, yeah, so this one's going to look really low and that one's going to be really high, but that's really useful for tracking energy consumption over time, which is the main benefit of Portfolio Manager, is that we have all these different charts and graphs so that we can see all our different energy use over time and see where we're improving and where maybe it needs a little bit of work. And then we do go over this more in the following portfolio managers, but there are a few different ways to enter bill data. So do remember that there were 2 ways that I did just go over, but there are other ways that you can do that as well. And also see here, you can edit a lot of different information. It really truly is only the country that you cannot edit. So again, always choose the country correctly. And yeah, that is about what we are going to do for that section. So now we do have a couple more things to go through. So I'm actually going to go, let's see. Actually, an important point is, so when I said earlier that you can edit data that you've inputted, so this is where if you wanted to add another type of use, if you didn't enter it when you first made the property, no big deal. You can simply come here, add another type of use. And then you can also edit the data that is in here. So if you made a big mistake and you entered the total wrong data, like say this gross floor area should have been 9,000 square feet, it was never 10,000, then it would do correct mistake. But if it at some point was 10,000 and now it's 9,000, so I want to keep that record, you know, because that was a correct value at some point, I would do update with new information. All right, so now we are going to get to the reporting section. So again, there is also sharing here. So we'll go over this more in the future ones, but this is a very useful tool, especially if you're trying to get data uploaded into your portfolio account very easily. Then you can exchange data with your utility or service provider, and then you don't have to manually update everything every month. And then there's also different reporting that you can do. And then there is recognition. So that's going to be applying for certification. My property is not eligible at this time. And we'll go over that in a little bit. All right, so we're going to go into this property because this one has 12 months of data. So very notably, you cannot get a score unless you have 12 months of energy data. That is very vital, and that is why my other property, because it only had 4 months of data, was ineligible to apply. So, or one of the many reasons. So we are going to go to reporting here. All right, so on this page, you're going to see that we do have quite a few different charts and different reports that we can generate. So let's see. So we are going to be going into this more in depth in Portfolio Manager 301, but we do want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up just to see why it is so important to get accurate data and to have complete data and 12 months of data, because you won't be able to generate any of these reports if you don't have 12 months of data. So you can scroll on this if you have a mouse pad, but it doesn't always work super well for me. So small detail, but I do recommend if you are trying to scroll through these reports, you can either go here, these 6, or you can just click to the right or to the left. So I'll click and then we can go through what they look like. So there's weather normalized source EUI, which is how much total primary fuel would be required by my properties under average weather conditions. That's one report. Weather normalized site EUI, which is how much energy would be reported on my bills under average weather conditions. Then there's total location-based GHG emissions intensity. So that answers the question of what is the carbon footprint resulting from my property's energy use. Energy cost intensity, which is how much do I spend on energy for my properties on a per square foot basis. And then there's indoor water use intensities. So the next two are water-based, and we did not go over tracking water today. But similar to tracking energy, you are able to track water and also waste, but for this, you're able to track water use, and then you're able to generate reports like this. So this one in particular is going to go over how much indoor water do I use on a per square foot basis. And then indoor water cost intensity is how much do I spend on indoor water for my properties on a per square foot basis. Energy Star score is what are the average Energy Star scores of my properties. All right, and now we are back to the different site EUIs and source EUIs. So as you can see, there are a lot of different reports. So there's these 6 up here and then these ones down here as well. So there are 9 different reports that you can generate. So if you have generated a report before, then you can, because I did one this morning, you can have the option to view your current report. Or you can download it in Excel or download it in XML, and you can also make a new report. All right, so let's do statement of energy performance. So for this one, because these are the top 4 tabs, these are accessible from any property, so you don't need to click into the property that you want to generate reports for and then go to these tabs. You can simply go to these tabs from anywhere that you are on Portfolio Manager. So for this one, you're going to select the reports to download, and I've decided that I want to do Statement of Energy Performance, but you can also check multiple or check different ones. And then for here, you're going to select property for the report that you're doing. So I am going to do Portfolio Manager 101 demo. And then I'm going to do current year for energy, but you can choose differently if you want to. And then I'm going to choose ES trainings as, there we go, all of our folks. All right, so here it's going to take us to a new window of a downloadable PDF, and it has generated a form for us. All right, let's try a couple of other ones. So data verification checklist, we'll go through that one as well. So data verification checklist runs the same checks that we run for Energy Star certification. So if you are doing certification, or if you're just curious about how your building stacks up, I do recommend generating this one. All right, so generate report, there we go. So this is going to give you a bunch of different things that you need to verify. And if any of these are no's, then that is going to be a good indication that you need to look further into that. All right, and then of course, like anything, you can always either print it or you can save it and then export it or send it to other people. So another thing is that you are, whoops, left click accidental. So you can have a data request. I don't currently have any data requests, but that is going to do with your benchmarking ordinance. So if you do have a local benchmarking program, like it says here, you're going to go to that website and you're going to find that link. And then that way you're able to, your portfolio manager account can communicate with that program directly so that you can get your ordinance communication through portfolio manager. All right, so custom reports. So this is if you want to create a template, but we do have just so many reports here. So you definitely, if you want to make a report, you absolutely do not have to make a template. You can use really any of our templates available. All right, so that's reporting. And before we go to questions, we are just going to go through, let's see, a couple more things. So also here, this is a big reason why you want to update your energy and make it as accurate as possible, because you are going to be able to get a chart that refreshes over time and gives you different data points over time. And then here we can go over this a little bit. So you can download your entire portfolio to Excel, or you can create a custom download. Also, if you do want to set a baseline or target, which we are going to go over in the future portfolio managers, then you can do that here. And also you can add different sample properties as well and delete different properties. And then for contacts. So if you are working with a utility or a licensed professional, often you're going to be doing that for certification. This is where you want to have a professional username because you are going to be using your account and reaching out to that other person and then connecting with them. So you can add a new contact. So if you want to connect with an existing user for sharing, we're going to do. All right, so we can do that. So you're just going to search that person. You can fill in all of this information if you know it, but for our purposes, I knew that she would come up, so I didn't have to do all of that. So then we're just going to connect, and then Alice will be hopefully accepting it. And then we can go back to contacts. And there we go. So once you have any sort of contacts in your account, then those connections will show up here and then it'll say the status of it. So it'll say connection pending. If you have sudden social regrets, then you can always hit cancel and try someone new. And it'll also say the organization and the username and all that sort of stuff. So that is super handy and will be very necessary at different points, or maybe not necessary, but will be very useful. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to go to a couple more things to cover. All right, so we are almost done today and then we'll be getting to questions. Perfect. All right, so for any extra help, if we didn't cover any questions today, I really do recommend that you go to our building's help desk. You can find that if you already have a portfolio manager account by going to your help button and then clicking on chat or FAQs or anything else, but specifically for this one, then you can go to our help desk and then they can answer any specific questions. And we also do have, as we said, a very extensive list of FAQs. And then there is, with that help desk chat, a form that you can submit any technical questions to or comments. And also, we do recommend that if you have any specific comments on the efficacy of Portfolio Manager or Energy Star FAQs, we do strongly recommend that you chat those in because, as we said, the help desk team is extremely responsive and they do want to make sure that they're have the most up-to-date FAQs as possible. So you guys can definitely help out with that. And then additional resources are available at Buildings Training, energystar.gov/buildings training. And those are going to have step-by-step documents, access to recorded trainings and short videos, and then information on any upcoming trainings. And then similar to our help desk, we do have Ask the Expert, which is going to be Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern Time, and it's every other Wednesday, so the next one is next Wednesday. And it is an open Q&A session for portfolio manager questions, so you just submit your question ahead of time. We get those questions, and then we prepare for it ahead of time, and then we're able to give you some answers. So you also have the option of showing up, but we do recommend if you do have any pressing questions that you do sign up ahead of time because questions can take anywhere from 1 minute to 10 minutes to answer. So you want to make sure that you get in the queue at an early enough spot so that you are for sure going to get your question answered. And then also we do have Portfolio Manager 201 and 301 coming up, so that will be a very good addition to what we've learned today. And after that, we also have a lot of other webinars available. So we're going to move on to our Q&A now, but also do make sure that if you are leaving the webinar, whenever you do leave, we have a Q&A right after this, or not a Q&A, we have a form that you can fill out to get your satisfaction or any comments. And so we do read every single comment. We look through the scores. I can promise you, we read every single comment. And our goal is to make sure that our webinars are as effective as possible. So if you had any lingering questions, if anything wasn't great, or helpful, or also if things were helpful, because we want to know what to continue and what to not continue, please do let us know, because then that way we are able to make this as effective a use of time as possible for everyone involved. All right, so with that, if you want to hop off, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to take a quick break and then we are going to get into some questions. Thank you, everyone.